Hello and welcome to today's Digital Dealer Webinar. Today's webinar is sponsored by ZMOT and is titled, Is Your Merchandising Even Ready for Digital Marketing? Today's webinar presenter is Jennifer Briggs. She's the Director of Dealer Strategy at ZMOT. The webinar will run approximately 1 hour with a question and answer session at the end. Please welcome the one and only Jennifer Briggs.
Well, thank you so much. Hello, everyone. I am really excited to be here today. I get to talk about something that I don't get to talk about a whole lot outside of consulting with my clients. What we're going to talk about today is really important, but let me tell you a little bit about who I am. I'm Jennifer Briggs. I am the Director of Dealer Strategy for ZMOT Auto. Been in the car business since 2002 in a lot of different functions and capacity, but what most everybody knows me for is for amazing, efficient digital marketing. And so when I go places, people are constantly asking me, Jennifer, how can I get the most bang for my buck? How do I maximize the return on my digital marketing investment? I talk about this with dealers all over the place. I even talk about this with vendors who are trying to help dealers or trying to understand why maybe the return on what they're offering isn't exactly what the dealer expected it to be. So when somebody asks me that question, before we can even go into talking about what they're doing, right? Because like, Jen, I'm trying everything. I'm doing targeted marketing. I'm doing social engagement. I'm doing content marketing. I'm doing videos in English, Spanish, loyalty marketing, geofencing, programmatic, and I'm doing all kinds of stuff to get social engagement, but I just don't feel like I'm getting a return at the level that I should. I talk to people all the time and I say, look, on your digital marketing, the reason why we like digital marketing is A, it's measurable. We can track it. We can track it all the way through. We can actually count that ROI. And I always advise people to look for a 5-time return on that investment. But if we're not hitting the return on investment that we need to be, before we look at any of these products, any of these partners that you're working with, as a dealer, the very first place that we've got to look is at our merchandising. Do we have everything laid out properly so that when we activate that SEM campaign or we're doing our blogs and our content marketing, when it's bringing people back or we have that posted out on a third-party platform somewhere, is that inventory merchandising ready for your digital marketing strategy? Now, a lot of people who've been in the business for a long time are going to be like, Jennifer, seriously? Of course my merchandising is ready. Man, I get those trades in, we push them through, my lot is perfect. If you go out, all my cars are lined up, everything looks great. I got balloons, the hoods are up, we got some sales signs, right? Our merchandising's on point, Briggs. What are you talking about? What I'm talking about, folks, is start to finish. And I'm talking primarily also, because we're talking about a return on your digital marketing investment, we're going to talk about your merchandising as it relates to digital. And we're going to jump in and we're going to talk about it in 3 different sections. So when we talk about whether or not your merchandising is even ready for digital marketing, the first thing we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about identifying bottlenecks. Now, what I'm talking about, folks, is start to finish from the point of acquisition, whether you bought the car at an auction, on the side of the road, or it's a trade vehicle. We're going to talk about the point of acquisition until the point when that vehicle is ready to sell. And that means different things to different people. So as we jump into that section, we are going to go into detail because you cannot streamline your processes unless we identify where the bottlenecks are. Now, there are going to be some of you that are listening to this call, and if you know that your days to market is 3 days, that is phenomenal and fantastic. But there are going to be some of you on this call who your days to market are 9 days, 10 days, 15 days. I have worked with a group of folks that were 17 days to market. and they didn't understand why they weren't getting a return on their digital investment. Well, half the inventory didn't have photos for 2 weeks. Guys, that's going to make a huge difference. But until we dig in and identify the bottleneck, we can't fix it. The second thing we're going to talk about today, as far as making sure that your merchandising is ready for digital marketing, we're going to talk about your vehicle description. And this one is, I can't believe, still hotly debated, but I'll save my opinion for when we get to that part of the presentation. It is definitely an area where I don't think as dealers we're paying enough attention to it. And last but not least, what we're going to talk about is how we reduce our days to market. We know that NADA tells us that it costs us as a dealer $61 this year, folks, up from $55 to $61 per unit per day, that those cars are not through your process, photographed, frontline ready, and online ready to sell. Ready to sell, folks, is something very different than tracking a no photo report. So we will jump into that, and we're going to talk about ways that you can actually streamline it and save yourself a few days. Not only will you get that cost per day per vehicle back to the bottom line of your used car department, but you're also going to be able to get that inventory online ready to sell faster, which we all know increases turn. When we can sell it quicker, we get a bigger growth. It means a big, big difference to the bottom line of our dealership. So without holding back, let's jump into the first section, guys. We're going to talk about identifying the bottleneck. Now, I've been in the car business long enough to know that when somebody, and whether you handle your photos internally, you have an external company that does it, it's the neighbor's kid who comes over, everybody handles their photos a little bit differently. But most typically in every store, regardless of size, if you're the GM, if you're the used car manager, new car manager, if you're a porter, somebody is going to be printing or emailing you a no photo list. Guys, and what happens? We get that list, because I've seen it happen a million times, and I am guilty of it myself. When I first switched over into this digital marketing side and I start tracking and looking to see, oh my gosh, I've got 40 units with no photos. The first thing I did, I picked up my phone, I paged across the lot for this photo kid, and that photo kid's name at the time was Neil. Like, Neil, come see Jennifer Briggs, report to Jennifer Briggs, immediately, Neil. And because I didn't have pictures, I'm looking at this report, the first thing I assumed is that this kid's not doing his job. I didn't take the time to identify the bottleneck. Now, once I talked to Neil, I had a better understanding. But guys, that happens in dealerships all over America. We know that we need pictures, and that's the part we focus on. But I am going to tell you, if you have your pay plan set up properly, whether it's a third-party partner helping you take photos or somebody internally helping you take photos, if you have that pay plan set up properly, then they're going to want to take as many photos as they can, get as many units done. It does not behoove the person taking pictures to just not take pictures. So I will tell you that that is not likely where your problem is. So we need to take a peek, and we need to see, is it in service? Is it our detail? Is it the photo guy, or is there some issue that's happening that we can't get that car ready to sell online? Now, I'm going to warn you before I switch to this next slide. Those of you who know me should be ready for this. It is a giant spreadsheet. It's not filled in, though, so it won't hurt your eyes. But when we talk about figuring out what is going on, we have got to roll up our sleeves and get in there and see. I worked in a store one time where we had about 40% of our inventory was taking us close to 30 days to get it through the process and get it online and ready to sell. This could have been a high volume location, but we could not, for the life of us, break 175 units. And so I start digging in and very quickly find out we've got an issue. And so let me show you how you can do this. If your days to market are not where you want them to be, whether you want to go from 12 to 10, from 9 to 7, from 7 to 4, I'm going to show you one way that you can dig in and figure out exactly where that bottleneck is. So here we go. Here's the only way I know how to do it, guys, with good old-fashioned hard work. We have got to track the vehicle all the way through, from the point of acquisition until the time that it is ready to sell. So there are third-party softwares out there, you guys, that are going to help you do this. You can set up, you can push your inventory into it. Your team can do it with text messages. They can do all kinds of things. This is a spreadsheet, a manual way that you can do it. Again, because I like to look at the overall profitability of a dealership, I don't like to sign up a software system that relies on a process if I'm not sure that my process works, because I want to make sure it's not the process before I layer on the expense of another product. Now, when you sit down and you look at your store, your situation may be different. You may not have enough staff to manually track it. You may need to have the assistance of some type of automated software to help you do it. I will let you know, the store that I was talking about, that we had about 40% with no photos in 30 days, ended up working with my partner. I had a partner that would come in and take the photos of the cars, and her team helped me to do this, and we tracked this through the auto tag. So if you've got Auto, or you've got AAX, or you've got Max Digital, you've got some type of inventory pricing or merchandising system, call up that partner and let them know what you're trying to do. I didn't have to use this spreadsheet, because what I did was I used tags inside of Auto, and we would put the date and where it was going. Yes, it can. We bought it at auction. It's in transit. It was trade, so on and so forth. And each time it would go through that process, then the porter would go into Auto and change it. Now, this is a very simple spreadsheet. You can build this. You can do it in a couple of ways. But you're going to want to track the date of acquisition. So we want our VIN number, stock number, year, make, model, guys. Some people can do this with just VIN or stock number, because we know that the people who are touching the cars and moving them on our lot most typically are going to identify the vehicle by year, make, model. Let's make it easy for everybody. We might know, because we understand our stock numbering system and we know how it works as a management team, but that porter who's going to be chasing the cars around, making sure that it's gone from detail to where the photographers need to have it, he or she's got a key tag, right? The key tag has a stock number, but they're also looking at a 2012 Buick Luther, right? They're looking at it, and that's what they're going to know it by. So because this is going to be a cumbersome process to identify exactly where your bottlenecks are, you need to make it easy for everybody involved. So I highly recommend including the year, make, model on your tracking spreadsheet. So the rest of it, you guys, is pretty simple and self-explanatory, right? Auction, if you bought it at auction, so the date you purchased it. In transit, the date that it shipped to you. If it was a trade-in, the date that we took it in on trade. We want to talk about inspection. Inspection is broken apart from service for this reason. The store that I just mentioned to you, I'm going to give you a sneak peek to the end of the story there. After we started tracking this through, we discovered that it was not the photo company that was not taking pictures quick enough. When the inspection was done in service, when the RO was open and came back up to my used car manager for approval, it wasn't getting approved. So that inspection point and approval of that RO is what was slowing me down. Funny story about that, come to find out my used car manager and my service manager didn't exactly get along. So we had some personal ego issues that was costing the dealership about $27,000 a month, because we didn't like each other. But without going through this entire process, I would have never known, because the key players in place independently were telling me two different stories. Anyhow, so you need to know that inspection service is when that RO was approved. So when service is ready to start and the RO is approved, that's the date you put there. Now, if it needs body work or sublet, of course you're going to know those dates will go there. I will advise you and caution you for sublet. When you put a date in there for sublet, if you really want to track a bottleneck, that date should be the date you open the PO. the date that you call that other partner to send the vehicle, whether it's a different dealership, if it's a spray and bed liner company, whatever it might be, the day that you open the purchase order for it to go to the sublet company, because we can't lose days waiting for somebody to come pick up a car or somebody to deliver a car. That's the point that it's at, and we need to see. If it takes 3 days for it to get picked up by that bed liner company that's bringing it in, maybe we need to look at somebody else, or maybe we need to talk about doing something internally because they obviously can't handle the workload and you can't afford to have that truck sitting for 3 days. So keep that in mind when you're tracking your sublet from the date you open the purchase order. All right, and then detail, that's pretty simple. The date that finally we're done doing service, body work, anything that we're doing via sublet is all done. We get the car to detail and they can do their job. Then the next is photos. What day is it photos? And then from photography to go right to the front line. You guys, this looks like a lot, and tracking it through, I'm not going to lie to you, it's going to take some work, but it will be thoroughly worth it. Not just in the savings by reducing your days to market, but being able to get those vehicles ready to sell faster. You're going to increase your turn. You're going to be able to get bigger grosses because you're selling the car in the first 2 weeks you own it, instead of waiting until, 15 days, 20 days, 30 days, 45, 60 days. This is going to give you a great idea of what is going on. One other thing I'm going to caution you, just like I said, when you have that no photo report on your desk, do not go wringing the neck of the kid that takes the pictures. When you go through this, now this is not something that I'm saying you're going to have to do forever in a day, but you are going to have to dig in and you are going to have to do this detail, whether it takes you 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month to figure exactly where your bottlenecks are. When you find out which column here is holding up your inventory on a consistent basis, guys, you're going to have to address that issue. And we're going to talk about a couple of the main issues you're going to find in the third section when we talk about some recommendations for streamlining this merchandising to reduce your days to market. But I would just advise you to collect the information and make a decision on how to fix it. One thing that I tell people all of the time, I don't care whose fault it is. I am not in the blame game. The blame game is not profitable for our dealerships, and I think too often and too frequently inside of a dealership, people start pointing fingers. I really do not care whose fault. I want to identify what the issue is, put a process in place or fix a process so that it eliminates the issue so that we can all make more money. That is my primary objective. And you should approach it that way as well. And when you sit down with your team, get everybody together, stand in the middle of the service tunnel. Have your used car managers, your porters, your service managers, have your techs and your detail people there. Let them know what you're trying to do so that they understand. They don't think that you're poking around, trying to say that they're not doing their job. We don't want our staff to feel less valued. But we do need to fix this. We do need to move forward, and we need to have a streamlined process to reduce our days to market. And identifying these bottlenecks is a team effort. So bring everybody together, have a conversation, let them know what you're doing, how y'all need to track it, and what the results are going to be. Get them involved in that, and you're going to get less blame game that way. Then they might start pointing fingers in the service tunnel, so maybe do it before the customers come in, but or after the customers leave. One way or another, get everybody on the same page about identifying these bottlenecks. So this second thing that I want to talk to you guys about is vehicle descriptions, right? Blah, 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 Briggs. What? Seriously? My inventory system auto-generates comments for me. It does this VIN explosion, and it puts it together, and I get to say, wow, it's a beautiful vehicle. Take it out for a spin. Da-da-da-da-da. We've got like cheese levels in Auto is what they call it. And then what? What is that? What does that do? One of the things that people don't understand about a vehicle description is that you're selling by telling the story of that car. And when we talk about vehicle description, it has to be optimized. It is not just words on a page. We cannot take what a VIN explosion spits out and just let it get pushed and published with our inventory all over the internet. You guys, these are our cars. This is how we make our money. I don't want some cheesy auto description coming on that doesn't even talk about the fact that this particular vehicle has a phenomenal navigation system, or what do people search for, right? A sunroof, or maybe I need to have a rear entertainment system. The VIN explosion is not necessarily going to optimize those descriptions for you. Now, am I saying you got to handwrite every single description? That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is it is incredibly important for you and your team to work with your partners, regardless of who they are, whoever does your inventory, whoever does your comments. I know that there are some pretty sophisticated software partners out there on the market that will help you to put together some type of automated description based off of the explosion or key features. I'm going to tell you what I've done in the past, and then we're going to talk about why it's important. But it is so incredibly important to your digital marketing efforts that you optimize your vehicle descriptions. Let's talk about the 3 different ways that you can optimize your descriptions and why it's important. Okay, so first and foremost, your description needs to be optimized. Well, first of all, is there anybody on the webinar right now, because I meet them all over, that actually does not have descriptions on their vehicle? Right, kind of scary. There are people still out there. You see it more on new cars than you do on used cars, where there is no vehicle description, right? They're going to just rely on a VIN explosion and an options list. But I will tell you, consumers are searching online. When they're going to Google, they're going to wherever, they're putting in that I would like to have a 2017 Buick Enclave with an entertainment system. If your vehicle description is one of the first places that is going to be scoured, now especially if you're talking about a third-party platform, not just regular search, right? You go into one of those and you start picking the features that you want. If you do not have those features highlighted in your description, your odds of coming up in that search are reduced. So when we talk about the value for SEO purposes, we're talking about keywords, right, guys? We need to be optimized for search terms. So everybody's market is going to be a little bit different, but there are standard keywords and features that are searched by consumers. The articles are out there. I would be happy to reach out to me. I know I just sent an email to one of my clients that's looking to improve processes here on the types of keywords that are searchable. Consumers are looking for navigation, you guys. We all know that. Your used car managers are going to know what these are because it's what people come in asking for. You can look at your webmaster tools to see what different types of featured keywords are bringing traffic to your website and include those. But some standards. If the car has navigation, we want to highlight it. If it has leather seats, we want to highlight it. If it has a sunroof or a moonroof, those are desirable features. If it has a third row seat, you would be surprised how many times we're talking about an SUV or a minivan type situation. Consumers are looking for that third row seat, and we're not even putting that in our description. We're leaving it in a feature, which is down below, sometimes in an iframe, not even readable on the page. So another thing too, of course, is entertainment system, right? How often are you taking a road trip? You got kids in the back of the car, just want some peace and quiet after you've been on the road for 9 hours, you want to pop on a movie, right? We're all guilty of it, but it's something our consumers are looking for. We need to make sure that our descriptions include those keywords that are actively being searched. One of the things that people don't necessarily think about and 100% should is the conversion. And when I'm talking about conversion here, folks, we're talking about conversion from an SRP to a VDP. I have not run across a web provider yet that will not allow you to put the first 150 characters of your vehicle description on the SRP page. Now, a lot of times people don't like to talk about the big third-party players, but if you take a look at what Auto Trader did, I don't know how long ago, right, when they started pushing the value of VDPs or bringing you all these VDP page views. You will notice on an Auto Trader search page, you have the first 150 characters. You have those things there. Now, if you are listed on a page on a third-party platform with a ton of different dealers, inventory, all mixed in, are you telling me that you don't want to give those key features we just talked about when we talked about SEO value in that first 150 characters? The photos of the vehicle are very important to get people to click in, but what they can see on that SRP is killer for conversion. So if you say that it is a gently used, 2015 Buick, and it's happening, we've got a one owner, these types of things, make sure what's going to get people to look deeper is in that first 150 characters. So if it's a certified, that's something that you would definitely want to include. That is a value add. Guys, one of the things I'm going to ask you to do, and I ask dealers to do this all of the time, stop thinking like a dealer and start thinking like a car shopper. If you were shopping for a vehicle and you were on a third-party website going through, I don't know how many hours of searching online, what would make it easier for you? You know that you have to have leather. Guys, I am a diva about leather. And people are like, oh, Briggs, get your pinky in the air. No, it is not about pinky in the air. I am a diva about leather because I have boys. And they are messy, and they have mud, and they're gross. I mean, it's just the way that it is. I can wipe up leather very simply. I don't want to waste time clicking into a VDP of a vehicle if it doesn't have leather. So for me, as a car buyer, I want that included on the SRP. On your website, you can have it set to push out. If you do not currently have the first 150 characters of that vehicle description showing, okay, first of all, make sure that your description's optimized, right? Your make, model, those key features listed. That first 150 characters is prime real estate, folks. Get that put together, and then talk to your website provider, talk to whomever you're pushing your inventory to make sure they're displaying it. No one is arguing the value of a VDP. We all know what the value of a VDP is. We need to get consumers to those vehicle detail pages, and we want to keep them engaged. But the first step to getting them there is to make sure that the SRP and your cars on search results pages are optimized for the conversion to the VDP. Seems pretty simple, but I'm still meeting dealers every single day that do not have these descriptions optimized for search or even showing on an SRP. It's so simple. You guys, this costs you nothing. It's a $0 investment that will increase the number of VDPs that you get. You get increased VDPs, you sell more cars. It's as simple as that. Now, we want them to engage when they're on that VDP as well, but that's a whole different webinar, right? We can go into that at a different point in time. Last but not least, I already alluded to this a little bit, you guys. We're talking about optimizing our descriptions for the consumer experience. There was somebody a while ago who they were kind of poking fun at, how we get so excited in our TV commercials, right? And there's big bursts and flames and starbursts, and it's $199 a month. Oh, we're screaming. In your vehicle description, guys, if you were talking to somebody about that car, would you be screaming to them about the car? If you bumped into your buddy at the baseball game and he says, hey, I'm looking for a great used truck. Do you have anything out on the lot? Or are you going to start screaming, one owner, one owner, one owner, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point? No, you're not. You're going to tell them it's a one-owner vehicle, that it's super clean, that it's got a tow package, that it's got a trailer hitch already attached. You're going to talk about the features that somebody looking for a good used truck actually cares about. Think about your consumer. I don't need 16 exclamation points in the first line for you to catch my attention. I'm not quite sure who started that. Maybe here, it was just a trend, but it's definitely not necessary. We need to know about the car. I have a story I want to share with you, and I'm not going to name names because he is a great used car guy. Got a little bit behind on his strategy, and this kind of is going to tie in all three of these different components for optimization when we talk about your vehicle descriptions. A few years ago, we had hired this guy, and he, like I said, great used car guy. And I came to work on Monday morning, and I'm looking at my reporting, and I can't help but notice something funky happened with my descriptions at this one store. All of a sudden, all of my optimized descriptions that I worked with my provider to automate part of them, had worked with my merchandising company that took photos to help us to customize the rest, were gone. I had about 120 used units at this particular dealership, and all of the descriptions that I had worked so hard and actually had helped this location hit all-time highs for conversion from SRP to VDP were gone. I lost 6,000 VDPs over the course of the next 2 weeks. What this gentleman had done was something he'd learned a long time ago, and he put the name of every single city in the Tri-County area into the descriptions. He was attempting to keyword stuff the descriptions of the vehicles because he thought that would bring him up higher in search. I will encourage you, if you are the person responsible for descriptions in your store and you are looking at ways to get more VDP views, please call me, reach out to me. Do not spend, bless his heart, this fella, because I called him into my office. It happened to be pretty close to the corporate offices, and so I sat him down and I'm like, hey, because of course I could see in the system who did it. The user records are all inside of your system. And he's like, yeah, about 7 years ago I did that, and I really got a lot of pickups for it. We got a big sale coming up this week, so I thought some more eyeballs would be a great idea. And I thought to him, I said, what is the customer going to feel like when they read that description of the vehicle? We all know we make bigger grosses when somebody gets excited and emotional about a car. We know that. What are they going to feel like when they just see a bunch of lists of cities? Is that car going to speak to them? And he said, no. I said, I had to explain to him how keyword stuffing no longer works. And he sat there and he said, so when I sat up at the cabin all weekend long and changed every single one of those, it was a complete and total waste of time. It was. And he now knows, and he apologized, and he was, he learned a lesson that day, but he was just trying to do what he thought was best. And you guys, our used car managers, now, unless you're a great organization that believes in continuing education, which you should, all the best operators do, Cardinelli Automotive Group, we make that investment in continuing education of all of our team members. You might have somebody who knew something worked 10 years ago and wants to try it again. Please play for them, because when you register, you get the link to this recording, and take them back through and show them this. If you still have questions, you all know you can ask me at any point in time. But please keep in mind that that description needs to be optimized, not just for search engines, but for that SRP to VDP conversion value, and most importantly, you guys, for the consumer experience. Think about what people want to see about the car. I want to know the year, make, model. I want to know if it has a moonroof. I want to know if it has leather. I want to know if it has four-wheel drive. Right? I live in Michigan, you guys. It gets nasty up here. People like four-wheel drive. If it is a sports car, they're going to want to know, is it front wheel or rear wheel? They're going to want to know certain things, and it's going to vary on your market and your vehicle. The key features that people search for are pretty much standard, but talk with your team and look at your webmaster tools. Tap into that used car manager. They're going to know, or your buyer, what the hot buttons are for people searching for vehicles, and put it together. Now, once you know what it is, I will tell you, handwriting descriptions, I don't know, we can't do a show of hands here, right? Anybody who has had to sit and handwrite vehicle descriptions knows that it is a pain in the kachickas. I will strongly encourage you to work with your existing partners to find ways to do it. I was able to do it with starring features inside of the auto. And then I built an automation for a part of it for the first section to bring in year, make, model as my standard intro, then to bring in my highlighted features into that first 150 characters. And then we worked between auto generation with zero cheese, please, zero cheese, and our merchandising team and our used car manager. A couple stores didn't want the merchandising team to touch it. A used car manager, I'm sorry, you guys, nobody is going to know those features better than the person putting a number on the vehicle, right? We took those things into consideration when we did the appraisal. If you're using your merchandising system to do your appraisals, it's just a couple extra clicks of a button to star that it's got leather, to star that it's got all-wheel drive, to star that it's got the moonroof. And then when you go into the configuration of your system, again, they're all very similar in functionality. Call your partner and have them work on this with you, and you can automate to bring those key features up. Save your team some time. Make that system work. Work smarter, not harder, guys. I say that all the time. All right, so now that we've got descriptions covered, and we can come back if you've got questions later, because that, for some reason, this section gets people a little bit confused from time to time. And so let's take a peek. Time, speaking of which, great segue, is money. We talked at the beginning of this webinar about the current cost when we talk about our days to market. And I am telling you guys, from the second that gavel hits the table at the auction, from the second that your consumer signs the deal and you take that trade into inventory, that clock is ticking. Day one, $61 per unit. So if you're a smaller store, it's probably a little bit easier for you to manage. I've worked with some used car managers, and man, his days to market was on point. And I said to him, I'm like, how on earth? Now this particular store, they were doing about 300 units a month. And he says, Jennifer, I personally go back to service with the trade. When I'm done with the appraisal, I drive it back and I make sure that the service people take it and they are getting started on the work. We have a great process for it. So often that is not the case, right? We buy it at an auction, the drivers go to pick it up, it comes in, we're waiting for accounting to get it stocked into the system, they're backed up. You know, it can take a couple of days. But when we look at, again, earlier we talked about identifying which section is slowing you down. It doesn't matter which section it is, folks. It's still time and it is still costing you money. So it is so very important that once we identify where the bottleneck is, that we can fix that. So some things that I want to talk to you about, because again, like I said, this adds up really quickly. Just carrying cost of a vehicle, not even talking about the value of being able to turn your inventory faster, gross profits, getting those cars online when consumers are ready to look at them. So I want to talk to you really quickly about some different ways you can streamline it. I shared a story with you earlier about a used car manager and a service manager who just didn't get along, right? So one of the first things that you're going to want to look at when we talk about streamlining those processes is who is approving the RO, right? When it gets back to service, the inspection happens, what does that process look like? Because I promise you, unless you have, and if you do have some great processes in place or you're using a software, that's fantastic. But for most stores, this is going to be your first stumbling point, right? Now, so when you look at this, there are some great groups that have gone to what we call an auto approval type system. They want to take some of that time out. Now, how do you do that? Well, if you talk about auto approval, you as a group can come up with a standard dollar amount, which should be an average. Go back, take some data, look to see at your internals, and look to see on average what is it costing you in reconditioning. Now, don't go too high, don't go too low. Find the right number for your store. It could be $800, could be $1,200 if you're putting tires on every single car that comes through. I don't know what you're doing in your store for recon, But you could look at an auto approval process. If you've got a lag or you've got an issue and who's approving it, if your service department knows that the RO is under $800, it's automatically, boom, let's go, let's do it. They can get started and they're not waiting on somebody to approve it. So I would highly suggest taking a look at that and finding out if that's feasible for your store. There's always going to be exceptions to the rule, you guys. We had this conversation a couple of years ago, and one of the GMs just kept talking about, what about this, what about that, and the fixed ops director was this, that, and I'm like, listen, you guys are talking about one-off situations. We cannot set a process in place for the exception. We set a process in place for the 99% of the time. This is the way that it's going to happen. When that 1% happens, we will deal with it as a management team, and we will deal with it as a dealership team. But take a look and set that process in place. When you take a look at who's approving, it could be as simple as maybe we need to shift it over. Maybe we've got it with the used car manager who should definitely be able to get to it, but we've also got them buried with all of the appraisals. We've got them sent out to the auction half of the time looking at acquiring vehicles because we don't have a separate buyer. Again, every time I tell you guys to take a look at something, it is not because I want to get somebody in trouble. Remember, I don't care about blame. All I care about is identifying the issue and coming up with a solution that works for everyone. So maybe we need to have somebody else approve it. If it's the service manager because we have an auto approval process, if it's somebody else, a GSM as opposed to the used car manager. Just find something that works and can improve that. You're going to save yourself, in some cases, 2 or 3 days in your days to market just by identifying and streamlining who and how those are getting approved. The second section where you can get a ton back is your looking at what is the priority of internal ROs in your store. I cannot tell you how many times I run into an issue because those of you who know me or you don't know me, I'm a little bit feisty. If I have a problem, I'm running back into service and I'm looking for the cars. I'm going through the detailed days. I am trying to figure out what is slowing me down because I want to make the money on that car and free up that investment and inventory for something else. So if your internals are not a priority because your techs and your service managers are, maybe they make more per hour turning a wrench on customer pay as opposed to internal. So they're going to get all the customer pay done first, and your internal used cars are going to sit and wait. This is an area that you need to take a look at because you might have an issue here. Maybe you don't have enough bays for your internal work, or they're all plugged up and we can't get them in, we can't get them out. If you cannot set aside a tech or 2 techs that just do internal work, you have to establish an internal RO priority system. Because now I've been at stores also where we charged more on internal, didn't necessarily get it through the system fast enough, but look at what that is so that you can push those through faster. Internal ROs need to be a priority for service as well. If they don't understand how it affects the profitability of their department, it is our job as a leadership team, again, to bring everybody together and talk about this. I think a lot of times when processes or procedures fall flat on their face in a store, it's because we don't take the time to get everybody bought into why it's important for them. It's important for them to have a great internal process so that they can get that work done, we can send them more and keep it churning and working. And maybe we need to hire tech. Guys, this is a problem all across America. We are having a hard time getting great A technicians. But you got to talk about it and you got to look at it. You didn't think that problem back in service was affecting your merchandising, but it could be. And then the last thing I want to talk to you guys about as far as some different ways that you can streamline the process. Now, I'm just going to say, when are you taking your pictures? I am talking to more and more dealers now who are taking the photos before it even starts the recon process. Now, disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer here. That is a workaround. Your car is still not ready to sell. Now, can it get more eyeballs on your vehicle faster? Absolutely. And I have implemented that process in a couple of stores where we didn't have enough tax. We couldn't do this, but we were wasting 7 days of digital eyeball time because we couldn't get our internal stuff repaired and streamlined. So at that particular dealership, I went ahead, and so at the point in time when we acquired the vehicle, it came from auction or we took it in on trade before service even opened their RO. Granted, we've got to make a decision here, right? We're going to wholesale it or are we going to retail it? What are we going to do? Then take it through the car wash, do a quick wash and back, and take some pictures, you guys. It does sound backwards, but more and more stores are doing it because they understand the importance of being able to get the car online and ready to digitally sell to people. Get it on the website, get it out to your third parties, get it out and available for your SEM or for your social media marketing, whatever you're doing. You can't do it without a picture. And side note, if you're using stock photos, again, this is something I don't understand. You see it more on new cars than you do on used cars. Did you know that no photo or placeholder that says pictures coming soon converts higher from SRP to BDP than a stock photo does? So yes, I realize that your no photo report doesn't show vehicles. If you have 5 stock photos and you go into the back of that merchandising system and check that little box that says use stock photos, but that shortcut is actually costing you money. So please, if you have stock photos, go back into your system and uncheck it. You're going to get more VDPs with just a placeholder that says photos coming soon. Or if you want to get super, super high tech, pictures coming soon. Impatient? Text us at blah, 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 right? Get some conversion from folks from your placeholder. But it is okay for you to go ahead and flip that around, because I know that I'm going to retail this unit. I know that I maybe have an auto approval process in place, and I appraised the vehicle and I'm pretty safe. It's going to be fine. I'm going to go ahead and take my photos ahead of time before it goes through recon. Now, that does solve half of your problem with having them online with pictures, but it's still not ready to sell, you guys. It is a workaround to help you reduce your days to market. It's your days to the internet, really, if you take the photos ahead of time. So if it works for you, it works for you. And that's great because, like I said, there's no one size fits all. It's all going to depend on your store and your culture and your market. I will caution you to make sure you are still tracking the rest of the stuff. So when we talk about acquisition to ready to sell, if you move the pictures from the second to last step to the first step before it goes through inspection or maybe after inspection or whatever, it's still not ready to sell just because you have photos. So be cognizant of that if you're doing that only to change the way your numbers look in a no photo report, that's not the right reason to do it. You still have issues that you are going to need to fix in order to have a shorter time frame from point of acquisition to the point of ready to sell. But it can help you gain a day. And it can help you to get some conversions or phone calls on that vehicle ahead of time. And then you can talk about, yeah, that's fresh in, we just got it in, da-da-da-da-da, and then you can do what your team normally does as far as getting them to come into the store. Do keep in mind, if you do that and you have not fixed the bottlenecks in your process with recon, then when people show up to see the car tomorrow, it's going to be up on a hoist. So, like I said, it is a workaround, but it still doesn't make that vehicle ready to sell. You guys, we have covered quite a lot. We've talked about actually identifying those bottlenecks. And this is how we know we're actually ready to kick off that digital marketing. We have to do these things. We need to identify the bottlenecks. We need to look at our vehicle descriptions. Are they optimized for search, for SRP to BDP conversion? And we also need to make sure that they're optimized for the consumer experience. That's very important before we're ready for digital marketing. And last but not least, we have talked about ways that you can streamline and reduce your days to market. If you have 100 units in stock and say that's a constant revolving 100 and you've got 10 with no photos, or maybe it's 20 with no photos, and it takes you on average 7 or 8 days, bringing that number down a couple of days even. You're talking about thousands of dollars in carrying costs that you're going to be putting right immediately back to the bottom line of your dealership. That is a big deal. It is what you have got to do in order to be ready for digital marketing, because folks, I cannot tell you how many times I've talked with a dealer and they say, oh, I'm working with such and such partner, and man, they are just not, I'm not getting enough leads. Why don't we get more leads from this type of thing, Jennifer? I thought it was cutting edge. I thought it was this. You know, I'm working with these people. They had this big article or whatever. However we got to working with who our partner was, then that's not converting to opportunities, right? What, man, there's something wrong. And I'm like, well, how many units do you have in stock with no photos? Because if you're doing dynamic retargeting campaigns on a display network, are you chasing people around with an ad that has no car in it? That doesn't really make sense. Or if we're talking about taking our inventory and putting it all out on social media for people to engage with it, our digital marketing is not going to get a return if that inventory merchandising is not on point. And that's what I'm talking about, guys, when I say, is your inventory merchandising even ready for digital marketing? Those are some things that you need to take a look at and consider. Once we've covered our bases and we know that our merchandising is on point, we know that our process is streamlined, and we know that we have our vehicles with great descriptions, our photos are up in a timely manner, you are going to see better results from your digital marketing. And that's something that we need to take responsibility for as a dealership or dealer group. I don't know about you guys, but I'm a kind of control my own destiny kind of girl. I want to be in control of it, and I want to know that everything that is within my control is optimized to get me the most results. That's why I can stand around and say I want a 5-time return on my digital investment. But I'm going to go back through before I demand that of a marketing partner and make sure that my house is in order, that I have my merchandising and my inventory is on point and ready to go, so that when I put it out there on my virtual showroom or I push it out there to the masses through a third-party platform, I am set up and I am ready to sell some cars. So, guys, that kind of wraps up my little, with my soapbox right there. Want to check to see, did we have any questions coming through during the presentation? Because I will apologize, I didn't stop to look at the questions box.
Okay. That was some great information. Like Jennifer said, we're now in the question and answer portion of the webinar. Please feel free to submit your questions to the question box to your right, and me and Jennifer will just have a small questions and answer dialogue. Jennifer, we have one right here coming in. It says, do I really need pictures of my new cars?
I love that one. Yes, you do need pictures of your new cars, and you need pictures or descriptions of your new cars as well. So here is the thing. Again, I know we don't think about it because it is a new vehicle, that stock photos should be good enough. They're seeing it on the Chevy commercial. They're seeing it on the Toyota commercial. It's the same thing. It's never been driven, Briggs. Do we really need pictures of a new car? Actually, I think about it. When I first came into the Detroit market, I was a little bit shocked that I had 5 Chevy stores that I worked with right there in the heart of Metro Detroit, and nobody in that market was taking pictures of their new units. We had like maybe 6 real photos of our new cars, but the competition wasn't doing that. And I will tell you, that is one of the first changes that I made. Again, think of it like your customer. Think of it like the consumer. I don't want to see a stock photo. I saw that somewhere else already. I saw that on Chevy's website. I saw that on Toyota's website. When I am on the dealership's website, I want to see the real car. Can I see it, touch it, feel it? Now, first of all, a lot of you guys, if you are executing a video strategy that's stitched video, that's going to be dependent upon the type of photos that you have. Do you really want to stitch a bunch of stock photos together? That's not a great consumer experience. If you want to sell more new cars, get real pictures of your new cars. Now, does that mean, because that's a big controversy right now, I'm glad that that was the first question that came up. There's some different companies that will help you to duplicate photos based off of your VIN explosion and your op codes. I've manually attempted to do that before when I only had one photo person and a ton of inventory at a particular place. It can get tricky, but you can get a little bit further latitude out of some of those new cars if you choose to do it that way. If you choose to duplicate based off of you know, the year, make, model, interior, exterior, color, and option codes, just be really careful and make sure that they're actually the same before you go duplicating photos. But 100%, you need those, and you need descriptions on them too, or you're not going to come up in searches the way that you want to. Besides, as a consumer, do I really want to scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page and get into the specs or features of the vehicle to see what I want to see? I want to see a real picture of that sunroof right there, right? Because I mean, if I'm like most people, I just want to look at a picture or watch a video, let alone, and then I might read your description. So put pictures of the moonroof, put pictures of the nav and of the entertainment system in your real photos of your new cars, and then also put those features in your descriptions for your new vehicles as well. Super important that you do that.
Okay, perfect. We have another one here. How heavily do you think transparency plays into the consumer's experience?
Well, how heavily do I think transparency plays into the consumer experience? I think that it weighs hugely into the consumer's experience. We've been talking about transparency. I took over my first internet department back in 2011, I think it was. And we've been talking about transparency. It's huge in the consumer's experience. And when you talk about photos, kind of plays into that last question, real live photos or videos of a vehicle so that I can see it. Even if it's 2 o'clock in the morning, I work second shift at a factory, I just got home, this is the time that I've got able to look at a car, I want to be able to see it. So having great photos that are transparent, and in your descriptions as well, right? Include all of the information. One thing that I think some dealers are still concerned or maybe confused about is that they feel like transparency means there's no room for growth. And I really think that the way that some market-based pricing things have happened over the years and people have kind of jumped in, not strategically looking at how to use some of these tools and resources, transparency is super important to consumers feeling comfortable about doing business with us. When a consumer feels comfortable with us and we build the value in that transaction, that's when we maintain our growth. But when we get scared of transparency and we feel like we're just exposing and we're laying all of our cards on the table and we're giving up control, guys, let's not forget what at the base of it, sales is about controlling a conversation and guiding it where we want it to go. Just because the consumer demands transparency does not mean we're giving up control. The playing field is just a little bit different, and we're going to have to adjust our strategy accordingly. Having great vehicle merchandising is a wonderful first step to say, hey, here I am. I'm showing you everything about this car that I've got. I'm telling you about what you're going to like about this car. I'm optimizing with transparency in mind that digital consumer experience, that virtual showroom experience they're going to have with your car.
Perfect.
That's awesome.
We have another one here for you. Should used car managers take photos or some other employee or a third party?
That is going to depend on your store and your budget. I found it was more cost effective for me in my stores to have that outsourced. My first group that I ever worked for, we did it internally. I really don't think, unless you're super, super low volume and you just don't have anybody else to do it, I don't think that it's cost effective to have your used car manager do it. Now, do I encourage a salesperson when they do an initial walk around with the customer to snap a couple of pictures of the car with their Viato or AAX or whatever tool they're using? Absolutely they do. First of all, take a picture of the scratch, right? Start devaluing it so the consumer will be happy with the trade value and they won't think it's perfect. But you're going to have to figure out what's best for you. It might mean hiring an hourly employee. It might mean hiring somebody you pay them per car. What worked best for me was outsourcing it and then taking the cost for that company, and I didn't pay very much. There's a ton of different companies that do it, national companies that do it, local companies that do it, but heck, guys, I put it right to the cost of the car. I mean, any way you want to account for that expense, you can account for that expense. To me, it's a marketing expense, or you can put it right to the cost of the vehicle as part of your reconditioning expense. But whatever way, look at it, and when you see the bottleneck, if it's photos, you might need to outsource it, right? But definitely don't think your used car manager is the right person to be doing that.
Perfect, perfect. Another one here is, what are the newest stats on the no price or call for price listings?
Okay, so the no price or call for price is something that we used to do, we all used to do, right? Because we want to make the telephone ring. What I will tell you is that is not making phones ring as frequently as it used to. And there are still some markets. I ran across a guy a couple of months ago, and in his market, it was highly effective for the type of inventory that he had. And I say, look, if it works for you, that's great and that's fantastic. But what you're going to see if you go towards that strategy is that you are going to have a reduced number of appointments set. So if you execute that strategy and the phone starts ringing off of the hook, what is going to happen when you tell them the price of that car? Or you put it online, because even if you don't put it online, somebody else is putting it online. They're going to check KBB, they're going to look at NADA, they're going to look at Black Book. There's a gajillion tools out there right now that is going to tell that consumer where the price of that vehicle should be within, right? It's not going to be perfect. But if it does make your phone ring, and like I said, in some markets, it can work, but it will make the phone ring a little bit more. I don't have the exact stats for that right now. I'd love it if somebody would message in and tell us that exact stat. You're not going to convert that to appointments or shows. So in the end, does it actually help you sell more cars? Or does it just mean that your team is taking more telephone calls, setting less appointments, getting frustrated, beating their head against the wall to the point where they don't even want to grab the phone, and when they grab the phone, they most certainly are not prepared for that telephone call and creating a great consumer experience. I'm not a fan. Don't know if that answered your question, but not a fan of that strategy.
Awesome. Are there any products you can recommend that help with that showroom experience?
With the showroom experience, I guess I'm not exactly sure as far as how that relates to the inventory merchandising, the digital showroom experience. Whomever asked that question, go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and put my contact information up on the screen. Reach out to me because I'd like to get a little more detail on that question. The showroom experience, you could be talking about an up system. You could be talking about, lots of different things. I'm not exactly sure. Or maybe you mean the virtual showroom. So whoever asked that question, like I said, I can't see the question window right now. Just go ahead and text me or tweet me or email me, and let's talk a little bit more in depth about that. Odds are there's a gajillion pieces of software out there for us to use as dealers. The question is it really going to be cost effective, and is it something that's going to promote more productivity for your team and to create that better experience for your customer? So I'd love to talk about that with you a little bit more in depth when I can get a few more details from you.
Awesome. We have a really good one here, Jennifer. Can this really impact the bottom line in my pre-owned department?
Absolutely. Absolutely, it's going to impact the pre-owned line. When we talk about just the carrying costs that you can save by actively taking hold of your days to market, like I said, You know, I've worked in stores before where it was costing us $27,000 a month in carrying costs because we didn't have a handle on this, just in the pre-owned department. So let's talk about it. Even if your store, you're only going to save yourself $5,000, $6,000 to the bottom line in carrying costs. That's great. That's still putting money directly back to the bottom line of the dealership. But the other side of that is we are talking about increasing our inventory turn. When we have those vehicles from point of acquisition to ready for sale faster, we are going to be selling the cars faster. Improving your turn, increasing the return, selling more cars faster most certainly creates a more profitable used car department.
Perfect. And what is the best way to track my days to market?
Okay, so the best way to track your days to market, if your software system is not already showing you that, I'm going to come back and I'm going to show you all this slide one more time. This is just in a little Excel spreadsheet. So your best way to track it, if you're not sure of how to do it inside of your software, is to actually manually do it. Write it on a log and you can see from the day that you acquired the vehicle, whether it was auction or trade or you bought it off the side of the road, to the day that you have it ready to sell. And identify that. That is the best way to track it. If you're using an inventory management system, call your provider and have them get in there and show you. Sometimes those systems, the reporting is not all configured for being actively involved in managing this. So pick up the phone and call that partner that you're stroking a check to every month and ask them to help you figure it out. Or you can manually track it, whichever way you want to go.
Great. Thank you so much for attending today's webinar, and thank you ZMOT and Jennifer Briggs for some great content here. To view this webinar on demand and future digital dealer webinars, please visit digitaldealer.com/webinars. Thank you and have a great day.
Thanks, guys.